Welcome everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, AWS Discovery Day, Securing Your AWS Cloud. Presenting today's topic is Imran Ahmad. Imran Ahmad is a data scientist, author, and cloud instructor with extensive experience in designing, implementing, and optimizing intelligent algorithms. He has a passion for simplifying complex technologies, making them accessible to learners and professionals alike. As an AWS authorized instructor and Google Cloud authorized trainer, Imran specializes in delivering impactful training sessions that enable professionals to master cloud computing and data science concepts. His passion lies in teaching and creating innovative solutions that solve real-world problems and drive measurable value. Please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Cloud Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session dives into critical AWS cloud security practices, offering hands-on insights to secure and optimize your cloud infrastructure. Whether you're aiming for AWS certification or seeking to enhance your AWS training, this webinar provides essential knowledge directly from experts. I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Imran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar. In this webinar, we will look at a very important topic, and that is about the cloud security. Now, AWS, as you know, this is the market leader in cloud. And it's very rare that you will see that if there is a major incident that has happened, if AWS has been implemented using the best practices. is not in the news because AWS is a if you follow the best practices, if you follow the design patterns that are there, that we will look into that in this webinar, then your infrastructure is secure. So we will look into that in this course. Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Imran Ahmed, and I'm based in Ottawa. Um, so let me go to my LinkedIn profile. So I'm based in Ottawa, and I did PhD in machine learning. That was in 2010 when it was one of the things. And that was the time when AWS was perhaps the only option that we have. And my PhD basically, we extensively used AWS to implement an algorithm. So I also wrote a book, 50 Algorithms Every Primer Should Know. This was the bestseller, for the last two holiday seasons. And my full-time job is with Canadian federal government. I'm part of, there's a Center of Excellence in Canadian federal government, and I'm part of it. And what we do is that when someone applies for immigration, someone applies for student visa, so we use algorithms to accept or reject that visa. Canada is the only country in the world who is using AI for immigration. And I've been working with this team for the last 11 years. So my line of business is students coming from India. Originally, I'm from Pakistan, but I've been to India more than one times to look into how this process works. And this is something that is very interesting. And this, as you can see here, that now we use AWS extensively at large scale, and the data that we have, that is protected B and protected C as well. We also have confidential data. So we need to follow all the best practices, and this is something that we will look into that in this course as well. So let's start. So this course, the agenda is right here. We'll start with the security foundations. We'll spend about 20 minutes there. That when we talk about security, so what are the foundations of it? So we'll start with this, and then we will look into once we have looked into the security foundations. In the security foundations, we will establish the shared responsibility model. Now, shared responsibility model is that it identifies that what is our responsibility and what is the vendor's responsibility. And you can think of that in a way that if this is the cloud, let's say that this is the virtual machine that is there. The simplest, one of the simplest way you can use cloud. Now the virtual machine itself, that is hosted within AWS Cloud, right? So you have this virtual machine actually has CPU, it has RAM, and it is put in a software defined network. So if someone wants to use this VM, that person needs to go through the firewalls, the security that is implemented here in AWS, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing it in the right way. We are aware of all the vulnerabilities that are possible. If there is secret data here, so want to make sure that uh, we uh, we protect it from because as we know, cloud can become a single point of failure. Because let's say that your laptop is compromised. If your laptop is compromised, we call it as we use a term that is called blast radius. Now, the term blast radius, what it means is that if when we use this term blast radius, Now, blast radius means that what is the worst possible scenario if an asset is compromised? If your laptop, the worst possible scenario is that all the information that is in your laptop, it's stolen. But there's a limit how much data you can store in your laptop. This blast radius is, as you can see, this blast radius is worst possible for the cloud. If the security of the cloud is potentially worst possible, if the security of the cloud is compromised, the implication of that may be that if you have stored all your secret, confidential, your the data in the cloud, all of that will be exposed. Right? So we need to be aware of it, and we need to look into that as well. We look into what are the core services that are offered, and then we will look into the how you can create a strategy. We'll also look into some demos, and we'll see that what we can do next. Now, as I mentioned that there is a concept of shared responsibility model. What is this concept, and what is meant by that? And the analogy that I give it to people is that let's assume that there's a builder. You are buying a new home, and there is a builder who has built that home for you. This is an analogy, right? Now, when that house is built for you, now that needs to be secured. That is the fundamental requirement that is there. So something is the builder's responsibility, and something is your responsibility. What is the builder's responsibility? Let's think it through. It's the builder's responsibility to make sure, first of all, to start with the walls, they are strong enough. You know, there are locks wherever they are needed. The locks are strong enough. Uh, Optionally, there are some security cameras, some security system is there as well. So this is all the builder's responsibility. Then something is your responsibility. What is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to be aware of those locks and those security cameras, and it's your responsibility to use them when, for example, you are going for vacation. If you're going for vacation and something bad happens, so you cannot just blame the builder because you did not use the lock. Now, the same analogy is here. So AWS has provided us those locks and those doors and walls that are strong enough. It's not that someone will just punch and will enter because they are strong walls, right? But it's our responsibility to be aware of that and use them, right? So this is where so sometimes we use the term that we use here is security of the cloud. Now, what is meant by off the cloud or to off? We use this term off to emphasize that this is essentially the inherent quality of the infrastructure. So this is the security of the cloud. And then it's our responsibility. Sometimes we use this term that this is the security in the cloud. Once the cloud is there, then what we are doing here is that we need to be aware and we need to use these services as well. So there is something that is customer responsibility and something that is AWS responsibility. So together, just like in the analogy of the home, so it's the builder's responsibility to provide you with those tools, and it's your responsibility to be aware of them and use them. So there's a concept of physical. So when you use cloud, you have no idea that actually where the infrastructure is. So you cannot be held responsible if something is compromised within the physical boundaries of that. So it has to be the responsibility of the vendor. So all the physical infrastructure, regardless of which service you are using, that this responsibility is totally 100% AWS responsibility to make sure that the hardware that is used is latest and greatest. There is no security vulnerabilities. There is no physical vulnerability there that someone can just enter and steal. Extremely unlikely, but it's all the responsibility of AWS. Then comes the second thing, that are the logical access controls. For example, there is a data file that is stored in a bucket. Now, something is now it's AWS responsibility to provide you the IAM controls, authentication, authorization, non-repudiation, confidentiality. you know so all of these, data integrity, there are 5 different requirements that are there. When we talk about security, regardless of where it is, we are usually talking about the 5 requirements. Let me write them here, and as we will go through the course, we will look into them in more detail. So when we talk about security, it starts with authentication, then authorization. I'll define them, all of them, and then we will see that how we can make that happen in AWS. And so let's start with what is authentication. Now, authentication means when we talk about authentication, authentication means that actually someone is what that person claims to be. So what it means is that let me share it again. It seems that there is a glitch here in Microsoft Teams. Let me share it again. Yeah, here we go. So we are talking about authentication and authorization. So authentication is that making sure someone is what he claims to be. And then comes the authorization. Authorization is that once you have established that this person is what he claims to be, he or she claims to be, then it is that person is authorized to a certain level, right? So first there is the authentication, then comes the authorization. And now authentication and authorization, they are entertained. They are met through a service in AWS that is called IAM. You must have heard about IAM, the IAM users. So authentication, authorization, these two primary services, they are made possible using uh, IAM module, in AWS. So now, IAM, it makes sure that the requirements of authentication and authorization, uh, they are fully met. There is no unauthorized access to AWS. Now, this is one thing that is there. And any service that you use in AWS, it has to go through this gate that you can think of this as a gate, that is IAM. And IAM, if it means that it makes sure that every service, every asset is actually it goes through this gate of AWS, right? Now, IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. If you are looking for what it stands for, IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. And Let me write it here. So this is met by this requirement, that is IAM. Let me show you that how actually it looks like. So if you go to AWS and you just write IAM. Now, IAM is a service that is offered. There will be, you can create different IAM users. Each of the users will uh, will need to have an authorization level. So for example, there's a user A, let's say John. John is an admin. So the authorization level of John will be that is it should have all the permissions that are needed to act as an admin. So that person will be identified a role. Role are the authorization levels that are there. So, for example, you can choose a role for a user. Users can be divided into different groups. There are different policies. The different policies that define the logic. So together, if you look into this one, together, what we have is that this IAM that we have, access management. So this is access management that we have. This access management is actually the way these authorization levels are established. So they are users. So an AWS account will have one or more users, number one. Those users need to be authenticated and authorized. Now, those users need to be mapped. There will be a mapping of those users to one of the roles. And this is where what we will do is that we will define their authorization level. So which user, there can be a user that will be given a role of admin. There can be a user that can be given a role of a reader, a consumer of information, and all of this logic that it is there's a policy file that has those logics that are there, So now let's now look into, so we talked about AWS responsibility. We talked about this shared responsibility model. Now in this shared responsibility model, the responsibility of AWS is to make sure, first of all, the physical data, the physical security of data centers. This is the first responsibility. The second responsibility that we have is that the infrastructure itself, infrastructure, the servers, the storage, the networking, all of that needs to be secure. Then if we are using any virtualization service, now that virtualization service that we are using, that should be secure as well. Then if we are using essentially some sort of, let's say, operating system, or we are using some open source database like MySQL, so it's important that AWS has, if it's a managed service, then the software patching for infrastructure. Whatever AWS is offering as a service, and it's an open source, then uh, the the software patching for infrastructure is there, and the latest patch are applied to the framework wherever needed. And now, how we can trust AWS? Now, the thing is that, okay, made AWS promise. Then, if, for example, if we are working for a bank, or as I mentioned, my full-time job is with Canadian federal government. How we can trust AWS? So AWS, what they have done is that they have those global and regional certification. So they are third parties, reputed third parties that have made sure that AWS processes, methodologies, infrastructure, it conforms to the established standards to the fullest. So the way it is done is that they are, now this is an important part of it that you will see here, that they are independent third party audits. And that allows us to trust AWS because they have gone through those auditing processes. And it's not one time. There is also continuous monitoring as new threats they emerge. Constantly throughout the world, uh, the the hacking techniques, they are getting more and more sophisticated. And there's a new threat on the horizon, and that relates to AI. And I'll talk a bit more about later. The hackers are now using AI attack the infrastructure. So we need to be, so what it means is that there need to be constant monitoring and testing. Whatever processes, whatever procedures we thought that they are perfect, as the techniques they become more sophisticated, we need to be sure that we are responding to the new threats, new vulnerabilities that as they emerge. So now this one was the AWS responsibility. So they need to constantly monitor. They need to make sure that they have gone through the third-party audits. They need to make sure that they have all the certifications that are needed, and they are taking care of physical security, infrastructure, any virtualization infrastructure. If that is there, it's not applicable to all the services, but wherever that is applicable. And then if there is any software patching required, all of this is the responsibility of AWS. Now, when we are using AWS, we are the customer. We are on the other side of the aisle. Now, for it's our responsibility. So I talked about IAM. So IAM is this module, Identity and Access Management. So this is IAM module, IAM. This is where we were talking about this IAM module, right? I said that authentication and authorization, creating those users, assigning them role, and creating the logic of this through the policies. So this is the customer's responsibility. You will define your policies. You will create your users. You will give them, you know that John needs to be admin. You know that Sarah needs to be the consumer of the information. You know that what are the right boundaries. AWS cannot, because you are the user. You know your organization. So this is your primary responsibility. This is one thing. The second thing is that for some of the modules, you may use operating system. So when you use operating system, like in virtual machine, then it's your responsibility to make sure that your operating system is not misconfigured. If you choose to, for example, if you choose to use an outdated version of an OS and there are known vulnerabilities there, then you have chosen to install an insecure, unknown, unstable version, the thing is that it's your choice. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you do not do not install outdated framework or operating system or database. Then network traffic protection. Now, when there is a network, now network traffic needs to be protected, right? And what it means is that, for example, there's a firewall, and it's your choice that which ports need to be open. And what you choose to do is that through an error, you open all the ports. Now, what you have done here is that you have misconfigured. This is not optimal configuration. It means that now the infrastructure is more likely to be the target of a hacker. And now it's not the responsibility of AWS, it's your responsibility. Then if the data encryption, wherever it's available, it's always recommended that you use data encryption and make sure that you are managing it as well. Now, these are the areas that are managed by the customers. Then there are service dependent responsibilities. So uh, in general, the infrastructure, we tend to divide them into three parts: IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. So what you're doing is that you're creating virtual machines, you are creating traditional RDS, that is the relational databases. So you want to virtualize your laptop in the cloud. You are not looking for a service. You want exactly the same experience as you have in the hardware that you own. So that is basically IaaS. Now, the more you go towards IaaS, it's more of your responsibility, because you have chosen to virtualize your hardware, but it means that you are responsible for installing the operating system. And when you install the operating system, then we go to right here, that is point 2 here. Point 2 was that because now you have chosen to install your operating system, so right here it means that this becomes your responsibility. All of a sudden, what's there is that this is your responsibility when you have chosen to use this operating system configuration. So this is something that you need to be aware of that. The more you go towards managed services, the more you go towards this, what it means is that you are, let's look into this. The more you go towards this, the lesser responsibility is on you. It's more of AWS responsibility as you go towards from IaaS to platform as a service or a software as a service. Let's look into platform as a service. Now, platform as a service means that platform is something, a tool that you are using to, it's not the end product. It's not the end product, but it's the IDE. This is the platform that is used to develop an end product. Example would be that when you write in the code in Jupyter Lab. Now, Jupyter Lab is not the end product. It's a sort of an IDE. It runs in the browser. But another example would be that when you use BigQuery or when you use Redshift in AWS, when you use Redshift, the Redshift is where you are. It's a platform that is virtualized. You can write SQL statement and you can develop the end product. It's not the service. It is tools that are virtualized for you so that you can develop the end product. Now, it's shared operation responsibility. It is in the middle, kamsi kamsa. And the third one is SaaS. Now, SaaS is where you are using a service that is provided by AWS. In the example, for example, Comprehend. Comprehend is a service that can, you can use a service, or you can just think about the bucket S3 bucket. As you upload the data in S3 bucket, it is not. This is offered as a service. You are not aware of the hardware, where it is stored, what is the software, which operating system is running, how much RAM, how much, you don't care. It's offered as a service. So now, if you look into the AWS security design principles, now these design principles, first of all, they are core design principles. Now, the core design principles, there are 5 core design principles. Let's look into them one by one. The first one is that you implement a strong identity foundation, ID. So it is about before you can use IAM, identity and access. We talked about IAM here, identity and access management. Now, IAM will work if you have defined the IDs in the right way. You have the right granularity. And what is meant by right granularity? It means that for individuals, it's simple that each individual should have an ID. But what about sometimes there are services that are consumer of our infrastructure. So you want to make sure that if the example would be that, let's say uh, that you have created a service for fraud detection. For fraud detection, so someone can submit credentials, an educational certificate, for example, a degree, and your service can give a number, a likelihood, that what is the likelihood that this is not the real certificate. Someone has manipulated that certificate in certain way, right? Now that is a service that you may have created using AWS. Now, the thing is that there may be another application that is using your service to get things done. This may be an application that is trying to approve the mortgage of an applicant. But the banker is not the direct user of your fraud detection service. Your client, your consumer is the application that the banker is using. So you are one hop away. In that case, you need to make sure that you know that the identity where the ID is needs to be established to that banker service, and all the requirements of uh, authentication, authorization that still needs to be met, although that is not a human. That is a service that is using your fraud detection tool. Now, this is the first thing that you have. You count all the entities, and once you have done that, then you give them the ID. The second thing is that enable traceability. Sometimes another name that is used here, it's also called non-repudiation. So it means that if something goes wrong, can we go back and see that what are the events that led to that disaster? Is it possible? And now this is possible if we enable the traceability. We have logs enabled, we have the breadcrumbs that are there. So everything that is possible that can and we that we can go back and see that what is the cause of that failure. So any failure, any vulnerability, any exposure of the data, it should not be ignored. It should be used as a learning experience. There is no perfect infrastructure. There will be things that there will be vulnerabilities there. There is no perfect infrastructure. That's the point. But there are infrastructure that are much, much better than others. If things go wrong, even if there's an attempt, to get in. So that attempt should be flagged. That attempt should be used as a case study that why we were able to protect that. And we can only do that if our system, it has traceability. If we can now, then we apply. So there is something that is called depth of defense. Let me write it here. Now, depth of defense. Now, depth of defense, you can think of this as one of the design patterns that is used. If you have visited some medieval castles in, for example, Scotland, and or they are in India as well, in Delhi, or so you will see that the way in those medieval times they secured those castles was by using multiple layers, not one strategy for defending. There will be gates. There will be other things there as well. There will be the places for watch guards. There will be multiple points on which those defenses are applied. There will be walls, gates, night guards. There will be 3 or 4 layers of defense. So now the same strategy is always, we don't rely on one strategy. We do not rely on one layer. So we want multi-layered, multi-pronged strategy. And the reason for that, this is that if one of the layer is compromised, we still have those 3 layers left, right? And as soon as one layer is compromised, that will generate alerts. And before someone is able to get into second and third layer, we have already taken the corrective actions. So if you think about this, it makes our infrastructure almost indefensible. Instead of putting all the eggs in the same basket, and it means that there's only one layer, even if that is perfect. There's no, as I mentioned, there's no perfect technique. There's a non-zero probability that our security will be compromised. There's a non-zero, so it can be minimum, but it's not zero. There's always some possibility. And the way we make it almost 100% sure is by creating those multiple layers. And as soon as one layer get compromised, it will still take some time before the second layer gets compromised. We should have enough time that the alerts that are generated through the system, it will allow us to take those corrective actions, those pre-prepared, semi-digested, so we have already prepared ourselves that if this happens, then this is the corrective action that needs to be taken. And if we follow this design pattern, our infrastructure would be almost 100% secure. Then we need to be, first of all, aware of the security best practices. We need to be aware that what additional threats are emerging, and we need to implement those best security practices as well. And we need to protect the data both in transit and at rest. So what is meant by this is that when the data is being transferred or at rest. When we are in transit means that, for example, it is being copied from your on-premise computer, you are uploading that to S3 bucket. Now it's in transit. So we want to make sure that it's protected, right? So your data is as secure as the weakest link in the infrastructure. So you need to identify that weakest link. And instead of beefing up whatever is already protected, so you want to identify the weakest link, and you want to make sure that you're aware of that, and you are taking care of the weakest link, and you are providing, for example, encryption or other strategies to make sure that data does not compromised while it's being transferred. Now these one are the core. This is the core. These are the core security principles. Now this is the operational excellence. Operational excellence means that we go beyond the security principles. This is where we thrive to achieve the operational excellence. And the operational excellence, we do it by preparing for so we have those strategies that how we will react. We run those simulations. If this happens, we'll do this. What if analysis? We do that analysis. And we, as I mentioned, we improve from so we use those incidents, the incidents that happened, we use them to improve our understanding of the vulnerabilities and making sure that we are aware that these are vulnerabilities and they are taken care of. And then we implement the least privilege access. If someone does not need access, don't provide that access. If a service of a person wants access, provide that person or the service the least possible privilege that can get things done. And once the things are done, take the privilege back. So it's time bound and it's role bound as well. So it means that the minimum level of the role, and we are sure that once the things are done, we take that role back. Now, there is also a concept that is called zero trust architecture. Now, zero trust architecture, now this is an interesting idea. Now, the zero trust architecture, what it means is that we do not trust anyone at any time. Even if we know that this person was logged in an hour ago, we do not trust that. Each time, at each request, we repeat the authentication and authorization, regardless of whether that person is a elite member, that person is we don't care that, So it means that now this is where so it will definitely introduce a bit of overhead, but this is basically called zero trust principle. It's not always necessary, but if we are if security is a concern and we are dealing with use cases where performance is we are not optimizing for performance. So it means that we assume this breach mindset and we approach this from this breach mindset. Now, when we talk about the components in AWS, so in AWS, what we have is that there are security groups and NACLs. NACLs are the access control lists, network access control lists. Now, these NACLs, let me write it here. So this stands for so together what happens is that with the security groups, they act as firewalls. And we established that which components in AWS should be opened at what ports. And this creates actually a data-centric protection. Now, if you look into the core AWS security services, now there are two categories. So first thing is that you want to make sure that so there are lots of services that are offered through AWS that is related to security. So first of all, as I mentioned, we looked into detail that the service that is offered, that is called identity and access management, but there are also data protection that is there. So I talked about 5 principles of security. So we have looked into 2 of them in detail: authentication and authorization. Authentication and authorization is achieved through IAM. IAM. This is authentication and authorization, but that is not enough. I said there are 5 principles. So there are 3 more. Authentication authorization is the top 2. The 2 more that I am talking about, they are uh, data integrity, confidentiality, and and then there is non-repudiation. We talked about this here. Non-repudiation, when we talk about the traceability, this is, you can call it non-repudiation, or if traceability sounds um, better, then that is basically whatever you're doing. It's no For data integrity, what we have is that we need to have this data protection. This data protection will make sure that there is data integrity. And we also need to have infrastructure protection. That will also make sure that we have data integrity. So we are talking about this thing, data integrity. Because the data that is there that you have put in the cloud, now what's going to happen if there is no guarantee that data will not change, you know? So it needs to be assured that data integrity is not compromised. So I think it's time for a break. Let's take a short break, and then we will come back. Okay, enjoy your break.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue from where we left off.
Now, then what we have is that when we talk about AWS IAM components, so I already talked about the user groups and roles. Three things: users, groups, and roles. And if you want to look into this, so you will see right here. So user, groups, and roles, all of these three, you will find them here. So user is right here. This is the IAM user. Then we have the group, user groups. You can divide different users into different groups. Let's say that there are three people related to IT. So there's a group of uh, those three people. That there's a group IT, and now all the so you can assign a role to a group. What is role? I talked about this, that the roles can be, these are the roles that are there. They are, but roles in general, these are, it establishes the authorization level of someone who has already been authenticated. Authentication needs to be done, but once someone has authenticated, now that person is a guest. There's no issue with that person's authentication, but that person is a guest. That person cannot look at our financial data. So that will define by the role. Role of that person is a guest role, and that is not an admin role. That is not a BA role. So, and that will be defined through the policies. Now, all of these things, three things together, what they do is that they make sure that we have um, the the authentication authorization done in the right way. So this is where I was talking about. Um, users, and I was talking about here users, groups, and roles. And then there are policies. I showed you the policies as well, and the policies are right here. You will see policies are here. And now, as you know that MFA is in a way, we are, it's not depth in defense, but we are using more than one methodologies to authenticate. This is used for authentication, of course. So we are using, we want to make sure that if for some reason, if someone's password or one of the methods of authentication is compromised, there is still a way to counter that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all these policies need to be monitored. We need to constantly see that there was no vulnerabilities, and that is done through the access analyzer, through which we can see that how this access is happening. The best practice is that enforce. You can define a policy. Now, this policy will determine that how authentication and authorization is done, and the recommendation is that this policy should be devised in a way to enforce MFA for all the users. This is what it's saying. And we already talked about the principle of least privilege. But one thing that companies do not pay attention to is that regular audit permissions. So these permissions that are there, if there's a single person that has given admin rights, then we need to be first of all aware of it, and we need to give the regular audit permissions for it, and use temporary credentials. So what it means is that when so AWS, sometimes what it does is that it creates the temporary credentials. So those credentials has a timeout. So someone needs admin privilege. So you will create a role. That role is given to a person, but now that person originally had a guest role, and that person needed some privileges to do some things done. That's a consultant who is visiting our company. So we can give that person an admin privilege, a role of admin privilege, but that should time out. So by default, that is the behavior of AWS. The roles that are given to the people to elevate their level of authorization, by default, they do timeout. Now, if you look into the roles, now roles of IAM, they are used for different purposes. What is a role? Role um, role provides the details that provides these details that how um, for a service this user or the person who is assigned this role can do read or write in all the dimensions. If it's a table, can that person read or write a table? That person can delete a table. If it's about running a code, can that person execute it? So all those details are they come up with a role. So now what we have here is that now IAM roles, they are some pre-built, built-in roles, but you can also define your custom roles as well. So custom roles are also possible. And you can have the service control policies. For example, no one is allowed to use Gen AI. There's an organization, they don't want their employees to be using Gen AI. There's a policy, they don't want for the or from this account, they don't want them to use it. Now this will be defined in the service control policy. So this service control policy will define the outer boundaries that okay, let's say that we have 7 services, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So what we are saying here is that this is all that is permitted. And these 2 services, they are not allowed. One is Gen AI, one is say training AI models. Both of them seems to be very expensive, and they are not related to the work. This is a data engineering account. We want to do data engineering, and for data engineering, we are not using Gen AI. We are not using so that is not relevant. So we can so using service control policies, it means that these are not allowed. Doesn't matter which you create admin or you create you assign someone a role of admin. This is outside of the authorization boundaries that have been established. So we can have those. So we establish those permission boundaries right here. Now, if you look into the detective controls that we have, now they are first of all, I talked about traceability, non-repudiation. Now, what are the services that are offered by AWS? So let's look into them one by one. First off, the most popular service of that is the Cloud Trail. Now let's look into now CloudTrail is it enables and the trail is it tells you it gives you a hint, but trail it keeps a trail of each and everything that is done on the cloud, and you cannot turn this off. It is there for the auditing purposes. Then we have CloudWatch. CloudWatch is used to monitor the resources. That, for example, what is you can think of that as in your laptop, you have resource monitor, resource manager, task manager, that tells you that what is the CPU and the memory utilization, how your GPU is being utilized, and what is the network traffic, which process running on your laptop, running on your desktop is consuming how much of the resources. In the cloud, that is done through this service that is CloudWatch. Now, this CloudWatch, if you look into this, CloudWatch is the service right here, and that so on the left hand side, you will see that there are AI operations, then there are alarms, and there are logs. Let's look into the dashboards. Now, this dashboard, if you look into this, so what it does is that it allows you. Now, let me show you that what it's showing you is this is the timeline right here. This is the utilization. It is showing you that there is at about this time, seems to be just after 1, there's a spike. So these are the, so you will see here that these are the resources that we have. So this one, it may be a virtual machine. It seems that it has spiked. Something happened here. It may be, but it gives you an idea that what is the risk. So it can be used to optimize the resources. We do not want to over provision. We don't want to under provision anything. But at the same time, it can also be used uh, if you want to do a post-mortem, if you want to look back and see that what happened, this can also be used. If there was someone was trying um, to to get in your infrastructure in the middle of the night, you will see that usually there is no one using your infrastructure in the middle of the night. There was something that is going on. There was some life in the middle of the night, and through that you can see the time. From that you can look into the logs, and you can see that what happened, what went wrong, and based on that you can learn lessons and solidify things. Now, if you look into the detection system, there are different tools that we have there as well. So the tools that we have, they are right here. Now, the tools that we have, let me explain them one by one. Okay, so let's start with the guard duty. What is guard duty? Now, the guard duty, this is a tool. Now, there are two types of tools. One is um, uh, some tools are used to address a threat, And the other type of tools, they are not used to mitigate the threat. They are used to analyze, to monitor. Monitoring tools and the tools that can prevent. You know. Now, the guard duty is a threat detection service. Guard duty is a threat detection service that continuously monitor your AWS account and workload for any malicious activity. So this is guard duty. Think of this a guard that is on duty. The name comes from there. So there's a guard that is on duty, and what we're talking about here is that that guard on the duty is essentially it's a threat detection service that continuously monitor your AWS accounts and workloads for any malicious activity and delivers detailed security finding. This is the guard duty. Then comes the inspector. Now, inspector is a service that helps you improve the compliance of the applications. So you have applications. So inspector will tell you that, okay, are you following the right principles or not? Is your So this is what it does, right? It's an automated vulnerability management service that helps improve the security and compliance. Okay, then we have Security Hub. Now, Security Hub, what it does is that it gives you the overview of security alerts. So the security alerts, for example, that you should be paying attention to. So it tells you that these things have gone wrong. There were some security alerts that were there, so it will give you that. And then there is Amazon Detective. Now, Amazon, if things have not things have gone wrong, your system has been compromised. Now, what the detective will do is it will help you. I talked about the postmortem, trying to using that an opportunity to learn. Right? So this Amazon detective, it helps you investigate, analyze, and uh, quickly identify the root cause of issues or any suspicious activity. So these three we call it as threat detection services. All three of them, they are threat detection service. Now they help you if there is a threat. They help for guard duty. First of all, it monitors, inspector. It suggests the optimal architecture in terms of security. Guard duty just monitor. It will not suggest you anything. It will generate an alert. Those alerts will show up in the security hub. So the alerts that are generated through the guard duty, they will show up in the security hub. That will be a dashboard. This will tell you that 2 a.m. Thursday, this happened. And if unfortunately your system had been compromised, in spite of all the care, things have gone downhill. There was a security breach. Then comes the detective. You need to learn the lesson that how to make sure that this does not repeat in the future. And this is where our detective comes into play. Right? Now, there are two types of services. You can look into them. So first one is logging and monitoring service. And the second one is they're related to specialized service for threat detection. Now, if you look into this one, we talked about the cloud trail. So let's zoom into this one. Let's see that. So now the cloud trail, What this does is that it is about the management and so first of all, you cannot turn this off. I talked about this and it is enabled in all regions and it is integrated with CloudWatch. So what it means is that this CloudWatch is integrated with this. When I showed you CloudWatch, you may see that at the bottom of it, here, let me close this. Yeah, so you will see the logs are here as well. This is CloudWatch. Now, CloudWatch is a monitoring tool. It's a resource. It's the task manager of the Windows. Monitors the CPU and the disk, but it can be it uh, it is related to the CloudTrail as well. And what is meant by that is that if we go back here, this is where we say that it is integrated with CloudWatch. So it's not that you can just monitor. You can also, if you see that, okay, there was a suspicious increase in CPU activity in the middle of the night, from right there, you can click and it will take you to the logs that are related to that particular event. So that is an integrated service. So and I give you a brief overview of the tools and the services that are offered here. Now let's look into them in some more detail. So guard duty, this is about the intelligent threat detection. It can it is about the continuous monitoring. It allows your infrastructure to be continuously monitored, and there is it looks into, it learns the patterns, and based on that, if something goes out of the normal, this is the guard and it will generate alerts. Now, when we talk about the infrastructure protection, I briefly talk about the security groups and NACL. Now, security groups, they are applied, they are the firewall that is applied at the resource level. So if you have a virtual machine, it will have a security group with that. So it means that if I go back here, if you look into any virtual machine here, VM, any virtual machine that is that I'll be creating here. Now with that virtual machine in AWS, we call it, of course, as EC2. Now when we create this EC2, with that EC2, you need to, it means that this is a virtual machine that is there. It needs to be tied to a security groups. Now, security groups, if you look into this, you need to create a security group. They are default security groups that are there. You can use them, or you need to create your own security group. Each of the security group, it will define rules. There's outbound rules, there are inbound rules. And you can specify that what type of traffic that is allowed in. Again, this is tied to a virtual machine, and what type of traffic this is allowed out. So it determines, it sets the rules, inbound and outbound rules, that what type of traffic is allowed in and what type of traffic is allowed out. So example would be that if you do not want HTTP traffic here, so you can block that. If you want to block a port, let's say you want to block port 889 or port 22, or you want to block port 80, all of them can be used here. You can use that in inbound or outbound. So this is the security group. Then there is NACL. Now, NACL. Now, NACL, they are related to network ACLs right here. Now, network ACLs, they are the firewall, the groups that are applied at the VPC level. So there are again inbound rules and outbound rules, similar to security groups. Security groups are at the resource level. So what it means is that let's try to visualize this by a diagram, and the diagram is right here. So let's assume that now I drew the virtual machine here, and let me draw it again. But now I will have the security group associated with that. So let's say that as we know now, the virtual machine is EC2 is launched in a VPC. So this is the EC2. This is a VPC. Now, when it's launched in a VPC, it will have a security group SG. In this security group, now this security group is associated with this EC2. It will define that what are the rules that govern this. Let's assume that there is another EC2 here as well. Now this EC2, it has a different set of rules. Its SG is here. Let's call it EC. And this is 1 and this is 2. Right? Now NACL are the NACL are applied here. NACL will be applicable. There will be inbound and outbound rules that are applied to everything that is within the VPC. So that is why if we go back here, so you will see that there is now this is NACL, network ACL. Sometimes in the literature you will see the term NACL that is used, or network ACL, access control list, and it has the inbound and outbound rules you can see from here. And if you go to, but this is applied at the VPC level. And then at the resource level, you can have, now you will see that there are multiple layers. I talked about the depth in defense. Now, if we go back here, there's one more thing that we need to be, NACL is optional. If you want to bring the depth in defense, you will have this NACL. And if this is something that, so it means that if you want it, this is recommended, but this is not necessary. This is recommended. So if you don't, if you say that this overcomplicate things and this is not what you're looking for, so we can live without it as well. Now, if now there is AWS Shield and AWS WAF as well, and let's talk about this, that what it means and how we can use that as well. Now, first, let's talk about AWS Shield. What is AWS Shield and how it can be used? Now, AWS needs to provide the tools, because AWS, as we know, that it allows us to create essentially large scale infrastructure, and that needs to be protected. Now, Shield is and when this large scale infrastructure is there, it is almost always a potential target for denial of service attack. Now, denial of service is the defense against denial of service is so important that AWS has a dedicated tool for it. So AWS Shield is a managed denial of service protection service that safeguard applications running on AWS. So this is something that you will see that, so let me write it here. So as I mentioned, it's a managed.
Sorry to interrupt, Imran. It's already 1:30. Like the session is for 2 hours and
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
only left with 30 minutes. So
yeah, yeah, sure.
we need to, cover all
Okay,
the
okay. So
slides that I see in the deck.
I'll
Yeah,
I'll hurry up. Yes. Okay. Thanks for the
thank
reminder.
you.
Okay.
Thank
Now there is also something that is called WAF. Now it's so denial of service. The tool that protects against that is AWS Shield, and then there is WAF. Now WAF is web application firewall. Now WAF, it protects against web applications from common exploits and bots. So this is basically the WAF that is there. Now data needs to be protected as well. Now, when we try to protect the data, so now for data, we have different services that is there. And the most important of that is KMS. Now, KMS is the one that makes sure that the keys, the public and private keys, they are protected, and it can be operated in a way that AWS can manage those keys, or the consumer or the customer can manage the key themselves. Now, for the data security, there is a tool that is called Macy. Now, Macy is a tool that is if we have PII data, personally identifiable data, that can, if for example, your phone number, your SIN number, that can actually identify a person. So that sometimes need to be masked, redact. And the redaction tool that we have, it's called Macy. Then there's a secret manager where you can store the username and password. And there's a certification authority that you can implement as well. Now, if you look into the KMS, now the KMS allows customers to bring their own keys, public and private keys. And now uh, it's a good practice that we rotate those keys. There's a function that is available in AWS. If you turn that on, so the keys will be automatically related. So I talked about Macy. Now Macy is where the sensitive data, we call it as the PII data, where you can identify a person. Now, for many applications, especially the one that we use for analytics, usually we try to protect that. We try to protect the ID of a person, and this is not an easy thing to do. Now, this uses machine learning to identify those in the free text, the phone numbers and the SIN numbers based on the patterns, and based on that, you can redact that as well. Now, if you look into the compliance support, HIPAA is of course, um, for health data. Uh, GDPR, this is general data protection. So AWS basically, it can be used to make sure that we are compliant, our infrastructure that is compliant. So when you build a security strategy, there are two parts of it: what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. Now, the security strategy is the what part. And this is where we plan, we do risk assessment and prioritization, and we build this depth in defense approach. We want to make sure that the compliance level, they are met, and we have the right security map. Now, Security Hub, I talked about Security Hub. It first of all, it gives you an idea that what alerts were generated in the past, and but you can think of this as a single window where you will also look into the security best practices, and it will also give you the custom security insights as well. Now, when we talk about the security automation, it is one of the one of the reasons that so we talked about performance excellence. Excellence, it relates to thinking in long term, looking at that whatever we are implementing, whatever we are designing, whatever we are strategizing, it is done in the long term. It is not you do it one time and things are done. So it means that the monitoring, the cloud watch, the incident analysis, the configuration, it needs to be automated. And for that we have AWS config rules. It can all the YAML files or the JSON files it will give you there. Then there is also basically the system manager automation. What that will do is that whenever there is an incident, if your system is compromised, it will you can automate that in a way that what needs to be done. What is your response to a security breach? So that can be automated as well. Now, the when we talk about the automation, now we also want to make sure that when we talk about the vulnerabilities in the system, usually it is in some config file. And there are so many config files. So AWS config, it provides you a single window operation again, where you can look at all the config files. Sometimes they are in hundreds at one place. And it can not only this, it can also suggest any improvement that you can do in the config file. It's a big help. Incident response, things now have gone bad. Now there's a AWS incident specialized tool to respond to an incident. Now for that, first of all, if things have happened, we AWS step functions, it is an orchestrator. It is a state machine. When orchestrator, that in general is an implementation of state machine. If first do this, first do this, first do this, if there's an error in doing step 2, and do this and this, right? So now this step functions, this orchestrator can be tied to an incident response. Let's think about this. Let's say that you have some sort of a web page, and that is giving some information. At the back end, there is a database. From there, the information is coming. If there's a security breach, what do you want to do if you are monitoring manually? So first of all, what you may want to do is that you want to block the access to the web page. Then what you want to do is that you want to check the logs, determine the level of threat that is there. And then based on that, you can protect your database, because this is all where all the data is reside. All of those can be automated through using this AWS. And it means that in the middle of the night, when it's not manually being monitored, if things go wrong, so those automated procedures can be triggered. Security Hub is where you will get an idea that what threats were there, and how much you are compliant to the security standards. Now, guard duty can need to be configured as well. So you need to enable the guard duty. I talked about that this is a guard that is on duty. Essentially, what it's doing is that it's keeping an eye that your infrastructure that remains secure. And what you can do is that if something goes wrong, so all the alerts that are there, you can look at, there's a search that you can go through. You can see that, for example, you're looking for a certain event. You can search through that and see that when and what time it happened. So if you look into different security access tools, there are different access tools that are there. The most powerful of them is AWS Trust Advisor. Trust Advisor, what it does is that it suggests improvements in your infrastructure. The choices that you have made, it will suggest that, okay, change this, this. It will take time. It will scan your infrastructure and will come up with a report and recommendation. Also, there is an IAM analyzer. IAM analyzer, what will do is that it will look at your authorization and authentication choices, and it will, for example, if you have assigned a write function to a guest, an IAM with the guest. So this is where it won't make a change. It will just recommend that this is what's there, and these changes are recommended. So Trust Advisor is broad based. It relates to authentication, authorization, non-repudiation, confidentiality. Now this IAM access analyzer, this is only about authentication and authorization. Now, if you look into so this is basically automated. Then there is self-assessment methodology as well. There are third-party assessments, and there is something that is called penetration testing. We simulate a threat and see that how easy it is to get in. Now, if you look into the resources that are around the security in AWS, so AWS, the security is a big topic. So you will see that so first of all, if you look into AWS documentation, you will find lots of material related to security, and it depends that whether you want to look at that from the eyes of a practitioner, from a security engineer, or you are more in a management role. You want to look at the security vulnerabilities, or you're an architect. So there are different ways you can do that, but there's lots of information, lot of material that is there. There are also security blogs that are there. Now blogs, because they talk about a certain architecture, they go deeper, and sometimes they also talk about their experience, what works and what does not work, and how to make things better. There is also a reference architecture. If your organization that is designing an AWS architecture, AWS has certain reference architectures for different verticals. If your vertical is healthcare, there is a reference architecture there. You can use that as the baseline starting point and evolve the architecture from there. There's also AWS documentation that is there, and there is a solutions library. It means that they are pre-built solutions, and instead of starting from the scratch, instead of reinventing the wheel, chances are that if, for example, you are working in government, you are working on an IoT device, look at what solutions are already there and then customize it according to your needs instead of starting from the beginning. So this brings us towards the end of this this webinar, and any questions?
Thank you, Imran. That was most informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And now I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Remy, our vendor manager, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this insightful session with Imran. And thank you so much, Imran, for this wonderful session. It was very informative. And I can already see 4 to 5 great questions coming in for him. And I know you're all looking forward to the Q&A. So I'll keep this short. Just a quick heads up. We are currently offering an exciting deal on our brand new course, Generative AI Essentials on AWS. So it's a one-day instructor-led foundational course. It's perfect for both business and IT professionals who want to understand AI basics, explore real-world use cases, and learn responsible AI strategies on cloud. And here's the best part. We are giving you 20% off on the regular price, which brings the course down to just $540. So it's a great starting point if you're planning to go for the highly sought after certified AI practitioner certification. So don't miss out. This offer is only valid through April. So let's take advantage of it while it lasts. So that was the new thing that I wanted to bring. And this 20% off is exclusively, we have initiated it exclusively for our webinar and masterclass learners. And that's why we are just keeping it valid through April. That is it. Back to you, Tracy. Thank you.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Remy. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. You mentioned the shared responsibility model, but I'm still confused about where AWS's responsibility ends and mine begins when using managed services like RDS or Lambda. Could you clarify that distinction?
Yeah, so AWS, so one way of thinking that is that whatever AWS owns, so you have no visibility, right? You have no visibility to the hardware. You are using virtual machine. So it's not your responsibility. Whatever you have no visibility, that is so what all the hardware, all the physical infrastructure, and so that is their responsibility. And anything that you have installed, any framework that you have created, any decisions that you have made regarding firewall. Now, this is your responsibility that you do not open a port that doesn't need to be opened. Yeah.
We're currently using on-premises Active Directory for authentication. What's the best approach to integrate this with AWS IAM when we migrate some of our workloads to the cloud?
So now, if you want to use Active Directory on AWS, the simplest way is that you can deploy that in an EC2, virtualize it. But AWS also offers a managed service specifically for Active Directory. Active Directory is LDAP, right? So it means that now it depends that do you want to replicate the Active Directory in the cloud, or do you want to move it, or you want to use the one that is on premise? If you want to use one that is on premise, then you have to create a connection to the cloud. In that case, there are ways to do that. If you want to migrate that to the cloud, then the best way of doing that is that you basically create an EC2, and then from there you just deploy that there. There are more than one ways depending on the needs.
We have compliance requirements that mandate data encryption. How does AWS KMS handle key rotation? And what happens to our existing encrypted data when keys rotate?
Okay, so key rotation is done automatically. You don't need to worry about that. So it's done automatically, and because both public key and private key, the secret key and public, as we call it in AWS, that they change. So s- there is so from the usage point of view, this is a managed service. So it means that you can rest, ensure you can relax that basically the data is taken care of. So, and this meets the compliance level. It is certified, and so AWS is taking care of it. So nothing will change at your end as a consumer.
Guard duty sounds interesting, but we're concerned about costs. For a medium-sized organization with about 50 AWS accounts, what kind of pricing should we expect? And are there ways to optimize the cost?
Okay, now many of the tools that are offered by AWS it comes for free. Now and for other uh, there is a fee for it. Uh, Now, for example, if you look into the Trust Advisor, if you want to look into AWS Shield, they are the basic is free, but you have to pay for it, right? Now, a guard duty is not free, but they offer you a trial for 30 or 60 days, depending upon your size, and you try that out. And for it's not free, but for 30 days you can try this out. And the cost for 30 days, there's a tool in AWS that you can use to calculate the exact cost based on your region, based on where you are. The cost may be slightly different. So the best answer is that use that tool. But for 30 days, the trial is free, but it's not a free tool.
We're planning to implement a multi-account strategy. Should we have a dedicated security account? And if so, what services should be centralized there versus deployed in each individual account?
So you do not need to have a security account, right? So security is essentially, it's not that you can have a person who is related to security and that person has a security role. But even if you have multi-account, so that is not a good practice, you know. So you have a role that is given to a person, and that person is, for example, that person can look at the guard duty, look at the firewalls, set up the security groups, and this is the way it is implemented. You know, there's no need for a separate account for it.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.